Alright, welcome everyone to another tutorial from Code Slice. So in this tutorial we will be looking at screen transitions. As you change the screen, how you can use the different transitions that are within the Kivy module. So Kivy currently has six transitions. No, it's eight. Yeah, it's about eight transitions, and we will go over each of these transitions together. All right, so if there's any questions, please do let me know in the comment section. And I have many other tutorials regarding the screen manager. So please be sure to subscribe and look through those tutorials if you want to understand like how to change your screens, how to delete screens, add screens dynamically, and all of those kind of things. Alright, so in this tutorial we'll only be looking at the different transitions that are there. Alright, so what we currently have here, we have a very simple setup basically. So we have our main app class, which returns our screen manager, which is screen manager class, which is the window manager, and this will manage all the screens. So we have two screens, screen 1 and screen 2. As you can see here, we have screen 1 and screen 2. Let me just move this a bit. Yes, as you can see, we have screen 1 and screen 2, which is of course managed by our window manager. Each screen has a name, screen 1, and we have a button in each screen, and when we press that button it takes us to screen 2, and this is screen 2. When we press the button on screen 2 it takes us back to screen 1. So let me just run this so that you can see what I'm talking about. Alright, so as you can see, this is screen 1. When you press it, it goes to screen 2. When you press this one, it goes to screen 1, and back and forth. So one thing to note here is that already there's a transition which is being used. As you can see, there's already a transition which is being used by default. Alright, but what if you want to use the other transitions? Yeah, alright, let's dive right in. Okay, so the very first transition that we will be looking at is the no transition. I know this doesn't make sense. How can the first transition be the no transition? So just to explain what the no transition is. So the no transition, it means there is no transition. So which means as soon as you press the button to go to the next screen, the screen just pops up immediately. There's no fancy effects, nothing. It just it just changes to the next screen. So let's go on and do this. So when it comes to transitions, in this tutorial I will be using the Kivy file. I'll be using the Kivy file. I will make another tutorial how to use the Python file, screen manager there. So what you have to do is you have to always import the transition. So let's go on and import the transition which we'll be working with, which is the no transition. So this is how you import hash import no transition Kivy UIX screen manager no transition. So this is how you import a it's supposed to be UIX here. So this is how you import a transition. Okay, so we've imported this no transition. All right, and if you want to put that transition into effect, so we want the transition to appear when we're transitioning from one screen to the next. So here, when we press this button, we go to the next screen, but we also want to put a transition there, so we're going to put it here. So we're going to say root manager, and then we're going to say transition, and then equal to no transition. All right, so when we press this button, there won't be any transition basically. All right, so let's go on and see how this looks like. Okay, let's run this. As you saw, the screen just changed suddenly. All right, as you can see, it just changes suddenly, just suddenly. All right, so this is the first transition, which is the no transition, meaning there is no transition. All right, so now we're going to be looking at the next one. I think the next one, everyone is very familiar with this one. It is the slide transition. It is the slide transition, and by default, Kivy uses the slide transition. All right, so let's go on and import this transition. Import slide transition. Kivy UX screen manager slide transition. Okay, so now we'll be using the slide transition. All right, so similar to here, we want the transition to appear when we press the button. So of course now we don't want to use the no transition but the slide transition. Yes, so now when it comes to the slide transition, we can also include the direction of the sliding. Like, do we want the screen to slide, to the left or to the right? Do we want it to slide up? You can put the direction. So in the parentheses, you can just put the direction, right? And let's say in this case, we want the direction to be down. So please make sure this is a string so that you don't get any errors. All right, so slide transition. So let's go on and see how this looks like. All right, as you can see, that is how you use the slide transition. All right, slide. Right. So once again, you can change the direction. So now it's sliding down. You can make it slide up. You can also make it slide left. You can also make it slide right. All right, yeah. So whether you make this, you can make this up, down, left, right. All right, you can use you can use those 4 different directions. Okay, all right, so our third transition which we'll be looking at is the card transition. Yeah, so the card transition, just to explain, so basically what happens here is that a new screen slides on the previous one, or the old one slides off the new one, depending on the mode. So which means you'll have like your different modes, and depending on the mode, the screen will sort of slide into the other. Yeah, let me not bore you with the explanation. Let's just go on and do this. So once again, we import card transition, Kivy screen manager card transition. Okay, so we have imported it. All right, let's just change here to card transition, since that's what we're going to be using now. Card transition. All right, so the card transition doesn't have a direction, but rather it has a mode. So there's two modes. So there's the push or the pop. All right, so let me just show you. So you can say mode. Let's start with the push. Okay, so let's go on and see how this looks like. Okay, all right. Okay, yeah, let me. Okay, all right, let's have a look. So as you can see, what's happening here is that this the screen, the next screen pushes this screen out. All right, so check this out. It pushes this one out. I know that this one tends to look more like the slide transition, but there's like a slight difference. So it pushes, so this screen pushes the next one. All right, yeah, I'm not sure if you can notice the subtle differences. If you do, please do let me know in the comments. Yes, yeah, so as you can see, there's a slight difference. The other screen pushes the other one. All right, so let's change the mode slightly. Let's use a pop mode. Pop. All right. Okay, yeah, so what's happening here, uh to be honest, it all looks alike. It all it all looks the same to me. I don't know, but you guys can, yeah, you guys can let me know if you can tell the difference. It's similar to the slide. Yeah, it's similar to the slide, but of course in this case it's like this the one screen is pushing the other screen, unlike with the slide transition, where both screens are sort of sliding together, whether to the left or to the right. And what you'll notice with the slide transition, there is sort of like this line, this dark line in between the screens, which also appears, which is not really the best. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So that's the third kind of transition. Now we can go on to the next one. The fourth kind of transition which we're going to be looking at is the swap transition. It's the swap transition. So this transition, I believe you should be familiar with, especially if you're working with like your iOS devices and stuff like that. Yeah, I think it will make more sense if I actually show you guys this. So import swap transition. Okay, Kivy screen manager swap transition. Okay, so now we're gonna, so you need to remove this, it doesn't have a mode, right? And then swap transition. So let's go on and have a look at how it looks like. Okay, all right, as you can see, this is how a swap transition looks like. All right, so the screen slightly becomes smaller and then it is swapped. All right, so actually this one is quite cool. Yeah, this one is very, very cool. So this is the swap transition. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, so the next transition which we'll be looking at is the fade transition. I think this one is quite self-explanatory. So import fade transition. Actually, let me just copy this and edit here. So fade. Okay, and let's change this to fade as well. Okay, so let's have a look at how a fade transition looks like. Let's run that. Okay, now let's go on. Alright, quite cool, right? This is actually very cool. So what happens is that the screen fades into the other screen. This is very good. This is very, very good. It's quite similar to the no transition. So with the no transition, this happens like quickly, and then with the fade, it just fades into the next screen, which is quite nice. Yeah, the fade transition. Definitely a transition which is quite good for your apps. Now let's go have a look at the next transition. So the next transition we have is the wipe transition. The wipe transition is quite similar to the slide transition. Let's just do it so you can see what I'm talking about. Transition, and let's just copy this. I don't want to type this. Okay, so wipe. Okay, import wipe transition. Okay, wipe as well here. Okay, let's have a look. Wipe transition. Okay. All right. Can you see? All right. So the wipe transition is quite similar to the slide transition. The only difference is that there is sort of like instead of like it just being a straight line separating these screens, there's like it's sort of like fading into each other in a way. It's quite nice. Yeah, quite nice. Yeah, of course you have to also consider the color of your screens and all of that. It's quite nice. Can't complain. Okay, so now let's go on and look at our next transition. The next transition, which is our second last transition, is the fallout transition. So import fallout transition. Let's go ahead and copy this. Okay, so it's fallout. Okay, fallout, just making sure there's no errors in the spelling, okay, and then fallout. Okay, so with the fallout transition, you also need to include the direction. Just to explain what happens, so what happens here, there is sort of like this, similar to the previous transition for the wipe transition. There is sort of like this shader kind of thing, which is fading the screens in and out, so with the fallout one, there's also this kind of shader, where the old screen folds and becomes transparent, revealing the new one behind it, kinda. So you can also sort of control the duration. So you can also like put in the duration, like how long this transition sort of takes. So let's go on and put in the duration. So let's make the duration maybe 0.6. 0.6. Okay, So let's go on and run this. Okay, cool, right? Wow, look at that. Wow, look at that. Wow, this is actually quite nice. Yeah, this is quite nice. Yeah, so this is the fallout transition. There's also an opposite transition to this one. um, can you guess what it is? Since it's the opposite, it's a rise in transition. Yeah, so it's the rise in transition. So also we have to import, so all the transitions have to be imported. So rise in transition, yeah, like that. Okay, I don't know why I keep copying this even though I copied before. So rise in transition, rise in. Yeah, so it also takes the duration parameter. All right, so just make sure you give it a duration. Of course, the higher the value, the longer it takes, and all of that. Yeah, so let's go on and have a look at how this transition looks like. Okay. Wow, wow, wow. As you can see, it's the opposite of the previous one. So in this case, we see that there's like this screen that just rises from the center while it's fading from the transparent. It's quite nice. It's quite nice. Yeah. So these are the different kinds of transitions that you have. Yeah, so once again, this is Code Slice. Please let me know in the comment section if there's any particular tutorials you'd like me to do. And please do subscribe. I really appreciate all the support. Kiwi's the best. Kiwi's the best, and take care.